Throughout human history, the world has always been shaped by people who understood power better than everyone else. Every era, every civilization, and every society produced individuals who seemed to move differently, think differently, and rise above the ordinary. We call them geniuses, leaders, strategists, philosophers, and visionaries. But behind all these titles lies one truth: they understood certain hidden laws of human nature that most people never learn. These laws are not written in classrooms, and they are not taught openly. They are discovered through experience, through observation, and through a deep understanding of how the world truly works. The first reality every genius understands is control over the self. The greatest battles are not fought on the outside, but inside the human mind. Most people react emotionally, impulsively, and without thought. But those who rise above the crowd learn to control their emotions rather than letting their emotions control them. A genius doesn't rush, doesn't panic, and doesn't let anger cloud judgment. When others scream, he stays silent. When others react, he observes, and in that silence he sees what others miss. That inner discipline becomes the foundation of power. Another truth is the importance of secrecy. Powerful people never reveal their entire plan. They know that human beings fear what they cannot fully understand and envy what they cannot achieve. A genius reveals only fragments, just enough to keep people curious, but never enough to be predictable. This is not manipulation. This is survival. The world is full of rivals, critics, and hidden enemies. Showing your full intentions invites unnecessary conflict. A genius protects his vision by keeping it in the shadows until the moment it becomes unstoppable. Geniuses also understand the fundamental nature of human desire. Every person is driven by a hidden need: validation, respect, fear, ambition, insecurity, or longing. A genius doesn't force people to follow him. He understands what they crave and aligns his actions with their nature. Influence is never about control. It is about reading people so deeply that they willingly follow, thinking it was their own decision. Understanding human psychology is one of the most powerful tools in the world, and the greatest minds master it without ever speaking about it. Another principle geniuses obey is the mastery of timing. Timing can turn an ordinary act into a legendary one. Most people rush, others wait too long, but a genius knows when to move, when to strike, and when to remain still. He uses patience as a weapon. He understands that sometimes doing nothing is more powerful than doing everything. Life rewards those who can wait for the perfect moment and strike when the world least expects it. No true genius wastes time in arguments. Most people argue not to discover truth, but to protect ego. A genius knows that convincing a closed mind is impossible, so he refuses to waste energy on debates. He lets his results speak. He lets his achievements silence doubters. Victory is the only argument that cannot be denied, and a genius focuses on winning, not talking. Self-respect is another quiet law of power. The world treats you according to what you tolerate. If you bend too much, people walk over you. If you give everything, people stop valuing you. A genius understands that boundaries are not signs of arrogance, they are signs of self-worth. When you protect your dignity, the world recognizes your value. Those who carry themselves with strength and confidence naturally attract respect, opportunities, and influence. Geniuses also understand the battlefield of perception. People don't respond to reality, they respond to what they think is reality. A genius crafts the way he appears, the way he speaks, the way he moves. He is aware that every gesture, every silence, every action communicates meaning, and he uses this awareness to shape the world's perception in a way that serves his purpose. Power isn't always about what you do. Sometimes it's about what people believe you can do. At the core of all these principles lies one deeper truth. The greatest geniuses conquer themselves before they conquer the world. They study their weaknesses, their fears, their insecurities, and they transform them into strength. They do not hide from their flaws, they refine them. They do not stop learning, they evolve endlessly. While others repeat the same mistakes year after year, a genius grows with each experience, each failure, each lesson. These laws are not about harming anyone. They are about protecting your vision, rising above mediocrity, and navigating a world that is often chaotic, unfair, and unpredictable. Power is not evil. It is simply the ability to shape your life instead of letting life shape you. And those who understand these subtle truths walk a different path. They move quietly, think deeply, act strategically, and rise consistently. The world still follows the same rules it followed centuries ago. Only the players and faces have changed. The mind remains the ultimate weapon, silence remains a shield, patience remains a strategy, and self-mastery remains the highest form of strength. Anyone who learns these principles, not as tricks but as disciplines, begins to see the world differently. They stop being victims of circumstance and become creators of their destiny. This is the hidden wisdom geniuses use, the unspoken code behind power, influence, and mastery. And once someone begins to understand these principles, they stop living like the world controls them and start living like they control their world. Because the true battlefield is the mind, the true opponent is the self, and the true victory is becoming the person you were meant to be. Powerful minds understand something most people never realize. The world does not reward the loudest voice, it rewards the most strategic one. Strength is not found in showing force, but in showing restraint. A genius learns early in life that reacting is easy, but controlling reaction is rare. When others lose balance, he maintains composure. When others panic, he remains calm. This calmness is misinterpreted by many as weakness, but in truth, it is the greatest form of dominance. Because the one who controls himself eventually ends up controlling the situation. These rare individuals also understand that people judge based on what they see, not what is true. So they use the art of subtlety. They never beg for recognition because they know true value never needs to announce itself. They choose their moments carefully, revealing their brilliance only when the impact will be undeniable. People who crave attention burn out quickly. Geniuses rise slowly and steadily until one day the world wonders where they came from. Another silent law that guides them is the ability to detach. Most people are trapped in emotional attachment to opinions, to validation, to approval, to relationships that drain them. But a genius is willing to walk away from anything that threatens his growth. Detachment is not coldness, it is clarity. When you are no longer desperate for someone's acceptance, you become powerful. When you no longer fear losing things, you gain the freedom to choose what truly matters. Geniuses understand that attachment weakens judgment and freedom sharpens intuition. They also master the skill of reading between the lines. People rarely say what they truly think, they say what they want others to believe. A genius listens not just to words, but to tone, pauses, facial expressions, and the emotions hiding behind sentences. He sees what others overlook. He catches contradictions. He recognizes intentions disguised as compliments. And because he sees clearly, he cannot be manipulated easily. This clarity gives him an advantage in every negotiation, every relationship, every conflict. Another powerful truth geniuses understand is that loyalty is rare and must never be assumed. Most people are loyal only to their needs, not to you. A genius treats loyalty as a privilege, not a guarantee. This awareness prevents betrayal from destroying him. He expects loyalty from himself first, dedication to his principles, consistency to his goals, and commitment to his path. When he meets people who match that loyalty, he values them deeply, but he never gives his trust blindly. These individuals also learn to embrace isolation. While the world fears being alone, geniuses understand that solitude is not loneliness. It is a laboratory of thought. It is the place where ideas are born, where clarity emerges, where the mind sharpens itself. They know that those who cannot sit alone with their thoughts will never control them. Isolation gives them an edge because it forces introspection, and introspection leads to mastery. Another truth is that geniuses never reveal their weaknesses to the wrong people. They understand that vulnerability in front of the unworthy becomes ammunition. So they build emotional armor. They show strength, confidence, and composure, not because they are trying to impress anyone, but because they know that the world respects those who respect themselves. They guard their inner world carefully, opening it only to those who prove themselves through actions, not promises. They understand the importance of unpredictability. When people can predict you, they can control you. A genius remains mysterious, not by pretending, but by being extremely selective with information. He keeps people guessing. He changes rhythm when necessary. He maintains the element of surprise. This unpredictability keeps opponents cautious and keeps opportunities open. Another guiding force in their journey is the understanding that greatness requires sacrifice. Geniuses give up comfort to gain clarity. They give up distractions to gain focus. They give up temporary pleasure to achieve permanent purpose. They understand that the world may label them strange, intense, or obsessive, but every extraordinary achievement in history was created by someone who was willing to be misunderstood. Geniuses embrace that misunderstanding because they see a future others cannot yet imagine. They also possess the courage to confront truth, even when the truth is uncomfortable. Most people prefer soothing lies over painful truths, but geniuses know that you cannot improve what you refuse to acknowledge. They face their flaws, their fears, their mistakes, and their limitations with honesty. This courage to confront themselves allows them to grow faster than those who hide behind excuses. Another powerful skill they master is silence. Silence is not emptiness. It is information. It reveals who is insecure, who is honest, who is desperate, who is confident. People rush to fill silence because they fear it. Geniuses use it because they understand it. Silence disarms arrogance, exposes intentions, and gives space for true insight. A silent mind sees further than a noisy one. And finally, geniuses understand that power is not an event. It is a lifelong process. It grows slowly through discipline, self-awareness, patience, observation, and inner strength. They do not chase power. They build it, day by day, choice by choice, thought by thought. The greatest victories are not achieved through force, but through wisdom. The world bends to those who have mastered themselves. These laws may seem dark, but they are not evil. They are simply the truths of how influence, strength, and human nature operate beneath the surface. When someone begins to understand these truths, they no longer feel lost in this world. They begin to move with purpose, act with intention, and think with clarity. They stop being shaped by circumstance and begin shaping their destiny. This is the path of rare minds, the quiet path, the strategic path, the path where wisdom becomes power and power becomes transformation. Geniuses also understand something subtle yet profoundly powerful. The energy you carry is felt before your words are heard. People sense confidence, insecurity, fear, or dominance long before any conversation begins. A genius works on his inner state because he knows the world responds to who you are long before it responds to what you say. When you walk into a room with grounded presence, when your eyes show clarity, when your posture reflects certainty, people feel it. Influence begins with atmosphere, not argument. This invisible aura is not magic. It is the result of inner discipline, self-respect, and emotional control. Another law they follow is the art of choosing battles. Not every fight deserves your strength. Not every challenge deserves your attention. A genius saves his energy for what matters. He understands the cost of conflict, so he fights only when victory shapes the future. Small minds fight to protect their pride. Great minds fight to protect their purpose. This selective aggression makes a genius unstoppable because he never wastes himself on meaningless wars. They also understand the value of information. Knowledge is power, but the timing and direction of that knowledge determine its impact. A genius gathers information quietly. He listens when others speak. He observes when others act recklessly. He studies patterns, behaviors, and outcomes. He pays attention to details people ignore. And because he collects information with patience, he makes decisions with precision. Most people speak to prove themselves. Geniuses listen to strengthen themselves. One of the deepest truths they understand is that emotions blind strategy. A genius knows that fear exaggerates danger, anger reduces clarity, jealousy destroys perspective, and pride blocks growth. So he watches his emotions carefully. He never allows temporary feelings to damage permanent goals. When emotions rise, he steps back. He lets the storm pass. He waits for the mind to clear before choosing a path. This emotional intelligence becomes his shield, protecting him from impulsive mistakes that others fall victim to. Geniuses also have the ability to walk alone, not because they prefer isolation, but because they refuse to lower their standards. They do not fear losing people if the price is their peace. They do not chase acceptance if the cost is their dignity. They understand that walking alone with purpose is far better than walking with crowds who have no direction. This solitude sharpens them, strengthens them, and eventually attracts the right people. People who align with their mission, not their loneliness. Another quality that sets them apart is their ability to transform pain into progress. While most people see pain as something to escape, geniuses treat it as a teacher. They sit with discomfort and ask what it is trying to reveal. They convert heartbreak into wisdom, failure into resilience, criticism into motivation, and loneliness into self-discovery. The world tries to avoid pain. Geniuses evolve through it. That is why their growth is deeper, faster, and more durable. They also understand the power of long-term thinking. Most people chase immediate pleasure, quick validation, and fast results, but geniuses operate on a larger timeline. They plan years ahead. They invest in habits that build their future. They sacrifice today for a tomorrow others cannot imagine. This long-term vision gives them a calmness that short-term thinkers don't possess. While others panic at every obstacle, a genius remains steady because he sees beyond the moment. Another trait they embody is adaptability. A genius does not resist change. He studies it, understands it, and uses it. Change is not a threat to him. It is an opportunity. When the world shifts, he shifts with it. When conditions evolve, he evolves faster. This flexibility allows him to stay ahead while others cling to outdated ways of thinking. Adaptability is not about compromising values, it is about upgrading strategies. They excel at reading the intentions behind actions. They understand that people's behavior is shaped by their emotions, experiences, and insecurities. So instead of reacting to what people do, geniuses examine why they do it. They see the invisible motives behind visible actions. They recognize hidden agendas disguised as kindness, jealousy disguised as concern, and weakness disguised as arrogance. This insight protects them from deception and gives them an unparalleled advantage in understanding human nature. A genius also cultivates an unwavering inner confidence, one that is not built on compliments, success, or applause, but on the quiet certainty of knowing who he is. His confidence does not need to be shouted. It is felt. It does not seek validation. It creates it. This kind of confidence cannot be shaken by failure or strengthened by praise, because it is rooted in self-awareness, not ego. Perhaps the most powerful truth geniuses embrace is that life is a constant negotiation. Negotiation with time, with challenges, with people, and with oneself. And in this negotiation, the person who remains calm, observant, patient, and strategic always wins. A genius does not force outcomes. He sets conditions. He does not chase opportunities. He attracts them. He does not beg for respect. He earns it through discipline and presence. All these laws combine to create a person who moves differently through the world. Quiet but powerful, calm but unshakable, humble but unstoppable. A person who is respected without demanding respect, feared without showing aggression, admired without seeking attention, and remembered long after he leaves the room. This is the silent power of those who understand the deeper laws of human nature. They walk through life with clarity, they rise with intention, and they influence without ever raising their voice. They are not ordinary, they are not common. They are the minds that shape the world while the world tries to understand them. Geniuses also understand that the world is not moved by truth. It is moved by perception. The strongest idea means nothing if people cannot feel it. So a genius doesn't just speak. He shapes the emotional atmosphere around his words. He learns the rhythm of speech, the pause that creates tension, the silence that amplifies meaning, the tone that carries authority. He understands that communication is not just what is said, but how it is delivered. And because he masters this, his words carry weight long after the moment has passed. Another hidden principle they follow is the discipline of not being everywhere. Most people scatter their attention across countless distractions, too many people, too many commitments, too many goals. But geniuses know that energy is finite. They protect their focus like a treasure. They guard their time, their circle, and their mental space. They say no far more than they say yes. They avoid noise and choose depth. And because they direct their energy into fewer things, they achieve extraordinary results where others barely make progress. They also understand the power of unpredictability. When people know your next move, they can trap you. When they cannot predict you, they cannot control you. A genius keeps his intentions fluid, his methods flexible, his thinking one step ahead. He doesn't become too comfortable in one identity, too attached to one routine, or too stuck in one role. He is constantly evolving, reinventing, surprising, not to impress others, but to stay free. Predictability is a cage. Unpredictability is liberation. Another law they follow is emotional leverage. People often say they make logical decisions, but the truth is that nearly every human choice is driven by emotion. Geniuses understand this deeply. They recognize the emotional currents beneath every interaction: fear, desire, envy, admiration, insecurity, and they navigate these currents with precision. They know when to show empathy, when to show strength, when to remain silent, and when to speak with fire. They move people not by force, but by understanding what moves them from within. They also master the art of intentional distance. A genius knows that being too available decreases value. So he creates space, not to create confusion, but to create respect. Distance allows others to think about you, question you, admire you, and sometimes even fear losing access to you. That emotional distance becomes power because it reminds the world that your presence is not guaranteed, and anything that is not guaranteed becomes desirable. Geniuses also embrace the law of slow building. They do not rush greatness because they understand that anything built quickly can collapse quickly. They strengthen their foundation, skills, discipline, mindset, awareness, before climbing higher. They invest time where others seek shortcuts. They polish their craft when no one is watching, preparing for a moment that may come years later. And when that moment arrives, it seems as if they succeeded overnight, but only they know the years of silent preparation hidden behind that illusion. They understand that progress often requires invisibility. In a world obsessed with showing off, geniuses retreat into the shadows to grow without pressure, without judgment, without noise. They evolve quietly, improve privately, and return only when they are undeniably transformed. This silent evolution is why they often reappear in life with a strength people never saw coming. They also know that influence thrives in subtlety. If you push too hard, people resist. If you impose, people rebel. But if you guide gently without making others feel inferior, they follow on their own. A genius does not force obedience. He inspires alignment. People follow him not out of fear, but out of respect and fascination. They feel his clarity, his purpose, and his conviction, and naturally begin to orbit around his energy. Another truth geniuses live by is the acceptance of impermanence. They understand that nothing lasts forever. Relationships change, opportunities fade, circumstances evolve. Instead of fighting change, they flow with it. They reinvent themselves, adapt their mindset, and read the direction of life's wind before others even feel it. This acceptance of impermanence gives them emotional stability. They do not cling. They do not break. They bend, shift, transform, and rise again. They also master the art of strategic restraint. Power is not only about action, it is about knowing when not to act. They choose silence over reaction, patience over impulse, strategy over emotion. Strategic restraint often creates more impact than forceful behavior. When you hold back at the right moment, the world wonders what you're preparing for. That curiosity, that uncertainty becomes influence. Another rare ability geniuses possess is the courage to be disliked. Most people bend their identity to please others. They shrink, soften, and silence themselves to avoid judgment. But a genius knows that pleasing everyone is the fastest path to losing yourself. He is willing to stand alone in truth rather than be accepted for pretending. This freedom from external approval gives him extraordinary power because no insult, no opinion, no criticism can chain him. They understand that the mind is a battlefield, and whoever controls the mind controls the outcome. So they feed the mind intentionally through reading, observation, solitude, and reflection. They remove mental toxins, replace limiting beliefs, and train thoughts like a warrior trains muscles. The stronger the mind, the fewer the enemies. In the end, geniuses rise not because they are born superior, but because they see deeper, think clearer, act wiser, and move with intentionality. They live by laws most people never notice, and because they follow these invisible principles, they gain invisible strength. The kind of strength that shapes destinies. Geniuses understand that true strength does not come from showing how powerful you are. It comes from showing how unbothered you are. When people can't shake your emotions, they lose control over you. When insults don't move you, when praise doesn't blind you, when chaos doesn't unsettle you, you become untouchable. A genius knows that composure is the highest form of strength. In a world where everyone reacts instantly, the one who stays steady becomes the one everyone instinctively respects. They also know that the world mirrors your attitude towards yourself. If you undervalue yourself, others follow. If you compromise too easily, others push boundaries. But when you carry yourself with quiet confidence, when you show through your actions that your time, presence, and energy are valuable, people align with that truth. The world treats you exactly as you teach it to treat you, and geniuses make sure they teach the world the right lessons. Another principle they follow is observing rather than announcing. Most people rush to talk about what they are planning. They expose their dreams, their moves, their goals, hoping others will approve. But geniuses understand that exposure invites interference. The more people know, the more opinions they express, and the more resistance they create. So geniuses work in silence. They let their results speak. Every step is calculated, every move is intentional, and every achievement is revealed only when it's complete, uninterruptible, undeniable, unchallenged. They also understand the power of adaptability within their own identity. While ordinary people cling to one version of themselves, afraid to change, afraid to evolve, geniuses shed outdated versions of themselves like old skin. They don't fear reinvention. They don't fear becoming unrecognizable. They understand identity is not fixed. It grows, shifts, expands. And by constantly upgrading who they are, they stay ahead of those who remain trapped in who they used to be. Another law they live by is recognizing the difference between noise and information. The world constantly tries to distract, confuse, and overwhelm. Most people drown in the flood of opinions, trends, and voices, but geniuses filter ruthlessly. They listen only to what sharpens them, strengthens them, and aligns with their purpose. They remove clutter from their mind and environment. Because clarity is not something you find, it is something you create by subtracting everything that weakens your focus. They also know the subtle power of underestimation. While others try desperately to prove themselves, geniuses sometimes allow themselves to be underestimated. They let people think they are harmless, uninformed, or less capable than they truly are. This gives them space to move freely, without pressure, without expectation, and without interference. Being underestimated becomes a strategic advantage because it allows them to observe, to prepare, and to strike when no one expects it. Another truth they deeply understand is that human behavior is predictable. Behind every smile, every reaction, every decision lies a pattern shaped by desire or fear. Geniuses study these patterns not through books alone, but through constant observation. They notice micro-expressions, shifts in tone, sudden silence, unnecessary explanations, and small inconsistencies. They decode intentions long before they become actions. And because they can predict behavior, they can outmaneuver it. They also recognize the value of emotional detachment in decision-making. They separate what they want from what is wise. They separate what feels good from what leads to progress. They separate temporary emotions from long-term vision. This ability to detach mentally, even while still caring deeply, makes their decisions far superior. They do not sacrifice their future for a moment of comfort. Another silent power they hold is the ability to turn observation into opportunity. Where others see problems, they see openings. Where others see conflict, they see negotiation. Where others see setbacks, they see strategy. A genius doesn't wait for opportunity to come knocking. He creates it through understanding the dynamics around him. They also understand that not everyone deserves access to their world. Geniuses are selective with their circle. They choose people who elevate their thinking, challenge their limitations, and encourage their growth. They move away from those who drain their energy or distract from their purpose. They are not afraid to outgrow people because they know that growing requires letting go. People who cannot rise with you will try to pull you back, and geniuses refuse to shrink themselves to make others comfortable. Another rare ability they possess is patience during resistance. When the world pushes against them, they don't collapse, they anchor themselves. They understand that pressure is a sign of elevation, not destruction. They know that obstacles are not signals to stop, but signals that they are approaching unfamiliar territory others have not reached. They use resistance as fuel. They keep going when everyone else retreats, and that single trait separates legends from the forgotten. They also understand the necessity of embracing duality. A genius can be gentle but strong, calm but fierce, humble but powerful, kind but unshakable. They understand that being one-dimensional weakens a person. True power is having multiple sides and knowing exactly when to show which one. This versatility makes them unpredictable, respected, and difficult to manipulate. At the core of all these principles lies a simple truth. Geniuses create themselves. They are sculptors of their own mind, architects of their own future, guardians of their own energy. They do not wait for life to hand them power. They forge it from discipline, awareness, and self-mastery. And because they follow laws most people never recognize, they move through the world with a level of depth, clarity, and strength that others feel but cannot explain. Geniuses also understand that influence is not built through domination, but through presence. The most powerful people in history did not need to raise their voices to command attention. Their energy alone shifted the atmosphere. A genius carries himself with such certainty that others feel it without explanation. He does not demand respect. He radiates it. And because he moves with intention instead of noise, people listen even before he speaks. His silence carries meaning, his gaze carries understanding, and his words land with impact because they come from a place of inner authority rather than insecurity. They also master the art of emotional invisibility. While most people reveal their fears, insecurities, and frustrations too easily, a genius learns to hide his inner storms, not because he is cold, but because he is strategic. He knows that the world can weaponize vulnerability when given too freely. So he shows strength when others expect weakness, calm when others expect reaction, and clarity when others expect confusion. Whoa. This emotional invisibility creates an aura of mystery that protects him from manipulation and keeps others guessing. Another law they live by is the power of selective revelation. They reveal only what serves their purpose, never what weakens it. They share their thoughts like a chess master moves pieces, deliberately, precisely, and with foresight. They know that transparency is valuable only when it is controlled. Too much openness invites jealousy, noise, and unnecessary interference. So they reveal only enough to inspire, never enough to expose themselves completely. Geniuses also understand that people follow certainty more than they follow truth. Uncertainty frightens the human mind, but confidence, real or perceived, creates a psychological anchor. A genius masters this principle. He speaks with clarity, acts with decisiveness, and moves with conviction. Even when he is unsure, he does not show it. And because he projects certainty, people naturally align with his decisions, trust his judgment, and rely on his direction. Another truth they embrace is the necessity of shedding illusions. Most people chase fantasies of perfect moments, perfect validation, perfect outcomes, but geniuses remove illusions to see life as it is. They see the world without the filters of fear or desire. They see people not as they pretend to be, but as they truly are. And because they operate in reality instead of fantasy, their decisions carry a force others cannot match. They also master the art of emotional endurance. While others crumble under pressure, geniuses understand that pressure is a test of inner strength. They build a mind that does not break under stress but sharpens because of it. They train themselves to withstand chaos, disappointment, criticism, uncertainty, and even loneliness. Emotional endurance becomes their armor, allowing them to move forward when others stop, to push when others retreat, and to rise when others collapse. Another principle that guides them is the belief that leadership begins within. Before they influence others, they influence themselves. Before they command respect, they command their own impulses. Before they control situations, they control their reactions. A genius knows that self-discipline is the foundation of all external power. Without inner order, outer influence collapses. They also recognize the value of studying human weakness, not to exploit it, but to navigate it. They understand how insecurity leads to jealousy, how fear leads to aggression, how ego leads to mistakes, and how desire leads to vulnerability. This knowledge allows them to avoid conflicts, predict behavior, and remain 2 steps ahead in every interaction. Understanding weakness is not cruelty, it is wisdom. Another extraordinary skill geniuses possess is the ability to remain unfazed by temporary setbacks. They do not label failure as defeat, they label it as data. Every mistake becomes a message, every obstacle becomes a map, every loss becomes instruction. They refine their approach until success becomes inevitable. This relentless refinement makes them unstoppable because they do not quit, they evolve. They also understand that growth is often quiet. There are seasons where nothing seems to be happening on the outside, yet internal transformation is occurring at a depth others cannot see. Geniuses honor these seasons. They do not panic when life becomes still. They know that silence is the soil where future breakthroughs take root. They do not rush the process. They trust it. Another law they live by is refusing to negotiate their worth. They never shrink to make others comfortable. They never apologize for ambition. They never soften their fire to blend in. They know that authenticity is a magnet. It repels the wrong people and attracts the right ones. When you live as your true self, you stop chasing acceptance and start attracting alignment. Geniuses also understand the power of long memory and short emotional response. They remember lessons, patterns, betrayals, and insights, but they do not let emotions dictate their responses. They keep track of what matters and release what does not. This selective memory protects them from repeating history while freeing them from carrying unnecessary emotional weight. And perhaps one of their rarest abilities is staying grounded while rising higher. Most people change when they gain power. Some become arrogant, others reckless, others detached from reality. But geniuses remain rooted in awareness, humility, and purpose. Their rise does not distort their identity, it refines it. They understand that the higher you rise, the more discipline you require. In the end, geniuses are not defined by their intelligence alone. They are defined by their depth, their clarity, their restraint, their patience, their perception, and their inner strength. They live by laws most people ignore, and because of that, they move through life with a quiet, unshakable force that sets them apart. They are not loud, but they are heard. They are not forceful, but they are felt. They are not demanding, but they are obeyed. Not through fear, but through the power of presence.